Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this InsurTech committee and blockchain committee event. So that's the first time that we're doing an event between the InsurTech and the blockchain committee. So we're super excited. Thank you for joining us. And if you are, an outside member of the FinTech Association of Hong Kong, welcome. So today, I'm Emmanuel Pestenisic. I'm the co-chair of the blockchain committee, and with Lapman Lee, who is the co-chair of the InsurTech committee, will be your moderator today. So before Lapman is introducing the speakers, we will I will go through quickly the agenda of this great event, Revolutionizing Insurance one block at a time. So first, the startups will introduce in 5 minutes, small pitches from their company, and then we will jump into the panel discussion. We have, a lot of insurance and blockchain experience on the panel today, so we're really happy to have our guests from all over the world. Lapman, I'll leave you.
Oh, sure. I guess probably the right thing to say is our next guest need no introduction, but I'll still do one anyway. So probably let's start with Mark. Mark, as you know, is the co-founder and CEO of Galileo Platforms, has had filled many CIO roles here in Asia before, was with the likes of ABN AMRO and ING. Actually, all of our speakers have a background in insurance. Bob Crozier from Allianz, he worked at AIA before. We're very happy to have him here, given that he's dialing in from Edinburgh, a little town close to Edinburgh. He's the head of Global Blockchain's Center of Competence and responsible for delivering tangible use cases related to blockchain and distributed ledger. In addition, he's part of the board of directors of Corda, which you probably all know, and he's advising and helping startups as a board member of a blockchain startup in Switzerland. William is with us here in Hong Kong. He is the co-founder and CEO of MediConCen, was with a lot of different companies. Both himself and David have an actuarial background, and William was with ZhongAn, AIA, FWD, and AXA. Last but not least, dialing in from Toronto, we have David. He's the insurance lead at ConsenSys, and he's also the crypto and data research scientist leading the global blockchain development for the firm. In addition, interesting factoid, he was a casual treaty underwriter in the past, and he has a PhD in politics. So welcome to our guest. And without further ado, I'll pass the virtual mic over to Mark to do his first part. So a big applause, virtual applause to everyone for being with us. Thank you.
And thank you, Lapman, for the introductions for everyone. I'll just quickly share my screen and go through a few slides just to introduce Galileo to everyone. For those of you who don't know us, we're a B2B company connecting together the different participants in the insurance ecosystem. Now, our big story is working between distributors and insurers to enable digital insurance. What the problem we specifically try to solve is to remove the duplication of data that occurs between these different participants, the distributor trying to hold their own view of the policy, the claim, the various aspects of the relationship, and the insurer doing the same. By using blockchain technology, we ensure everyone has the same source of truth. We eliminate the need for reconciliations and enable straight-through processing, giving the client a far better real-time experience. The way we've done this is by encoding the functionality you typically find in a policy administration system on a blockchain. We start right at the point of quotation, go through the full business life cycle, through onboarding the customer, purchasing the policy, all of the payment processing, claims processing, all of the client servicing, and renewals processing. We not only connect together the insurers and the distributors, we also have the capability to give reinsurers real-time access rather than just monthly updates. also medical providers, the banking service providers, and a full integration framework that enables us to access to other areas such as eKYC, claims fraud detection services, etc. Some of the things that we enable that you don't typically find in a policy administration system. Firstly, we can customize the products by distributor, which is very attractive to the insurers. Quite often in digital distribution, the different distributors are looking for something unique from their insurers. We structure coverages and benefits in a tree structure. One coverage can own another coverage, which provides a lot clearer structure for the people servicing the policy, but also makes our claims processing a lot more automated and faster. We also can attach the person insured to the claims so that, to the coverage. So that way, when we're processing a family policy, for instance, a claim in a family policy, we can actually see the previous claims that person has made. And also different people within the family can have different benefit structures. Our coverage durations can be very short. They don't have to be the full length of the policy, and they can come and go over the lifetime of the policy, creating the perfect environment for flexible incidental policies. And with that, premiums are also down at a coverage level so that we can charge premiums as the person is changing the coverage selections on their policy. Add to that this ability to automatically triage claims, and we end up with a very flexible structure for delivering really interesting digital products. And it's not just a blockchain solution, it's a full enterprise solution with a database where we unload all of the transactions for each person into their database, an interface for actually accessing all of that information, integration framework for all of the corporate systems, etc., and off-chain storage for personal information. We don't put any personal information on the blockchain. Once it's there forever, it's there permanently. And in insurance regulations, you do have to delete personal information at some point in the future. We have a whole mechanism for sharing that between the counterparties and between the different nodes involved in the transaction. Just finally, a little bit about what our live implementation at the moment. We're currently live in the Philippines, where we've gone live with Singlife. Singlife, the digital first insurer out of Singapore, went live in the Philippines using us for policy administration. GCash, the biggest wallet in the Philippines with 25 million customers, is their first distributor. We have 3 products live, working with them, and another 2 sitting on the platform ready to go live when they want to start promoting them. The most popular product is a dengue fever with COVID-19 cover, incredibly popular at the moment. Globe Telco, the biggest telco in the Philippines, is using us as the basis for promotion to their customers. People can use the points they earn on their mobile phone to purchase a 3-month COVID-19 insurance policy at the moment, which sees us processing over 1,500 policies per day. Can't say how many policies we're running on the system that's confidential with Singlife, but as you can imagine at that sort of rate, it's a lot. As I mentioned, we have about 4 other products under production and working with Singlife to take 2 additional digital distributors live on the system. That's the current update on Galileo Platforms.
No, perfect. Thanks, Mark, for that, and it's good to hear the successes that you have achieved so far, and we're looking forward to many more of those successes. Over to you, William, to share with us what MediConCen you have been up to. Oh, you're on mute, William.
Hi. Yeah. Let me share my screen. Okay. Can everyone see my screen now? Just a very brief introduction of what we are doing. MediConCen is an InsurTech company, and our agenda is to automate insurance claim and make insurance usable for everyone. I think for all of us who are very familiar with insurance, I got a deep feeling that actually there is only 2 major problems in insurance industry. One is the selling process, which is a lot of mis-selling happening. And the other one is really the claim process. have a bad reputation of being too tedious. And as a layman, I really need to rely on my agent to assist my claim process, or otherwise I won't buy insurance at all. So if we can find a technology to automate the claim process, ideally simply delete the word claim in the history. That would be perfect for everyone who buy insurance. We select a technology called Hyperledger blockchain to automate the whole process. As you all know, actually, there are numerous attempts to automate things. And as a matter of fact, there are certain automation have already been introduced into the industry. But then none of the solution could truly automate the whole thing without any use of paper. It's because there are a lot of parties involved, and typically it's also involving quite a large amount of money between a regulated party and a very big organization such as the hospitals. And without a system that everyone can trust, actually that would, even though one party can automate something, at the end of the day, the other party would need to reconcile the figures, and also they will need certain things to satisfy the need of their regulator or auditor, internal compliance. So at the end of the day, you cannot really have a system that are trusted by everyone to automate everything. So blockchain high to us is actually the tools to really make that happen, to truly automate the whole thing without the involvement of the end user, which is the insured. A bit of the progress that we have made so far, we are now serving over 600,000 customers through 10 contracted insurers in Hong Kong. And we have also cited more than 900 doctors in Hong Kong. And on top, we are also signing different hospitals, with one state-owned hospital signing MOU with us in Greater Bay Area in China. We are using the Linux Hyperledger technology, and I think among the panel, we are the only one who are using it currently, and it is one of the leading technology. We are a corporate member of Linux Hyperledger, and we're not only using that technology, we are actually contributing back to the open source community. And as a brief introduction, I work in different insurance company before, and right before I start this company, I was in Zhong'an, so I know quite a lot on how to apply technology to a practical use cases. And I think it's, as a matter of fact, it's more important to solve problems than to really say I want to use blockchain because that is advanced or whatever. So that's the vision that we want to utilize technology to really bring an impact to the insurance industry. And this is a very high level highlight of what our contribution to the open source technology. We are among the top in terms of the contribution to the Hyperledger technology in Greater China. And I want to briefly introduce how we see the issue, and how on a high level basis, how we see a solution could solve it. It's actually, a lot of people talk about blockchain, but it's really only meaningful if we can implement the blockchain on a decentralized basis. That means each party who participate in the blockchain should really host what we call a blockchain node to ensure that without the digital consent, no changes to the data and the logic can be implemented. The exact reason why we always mention smart contract in a blockchain environment is really that the system really works as a contract. That means without mutual consent, nothing can be changed. So we implement the solution, having different insurance companies, they would have their own blockchain node that are managed under their infrastructure, and that ensure the integrity of the system. And each participating medical association, in Hong Kong we call it medical network. In some places it may be called a third-party administrator, would own a blockchain node on behalf of the participating medical providers. So in that kind of setup, the insurance company, the medical provider, and the hospital, they would have their control on the system. So you can't say we are the developer, we can do anything. It is really, once the logic is agreed and implemented into the blockchain system, the only changes allowed to these kind of infrastructure or the logic and the data is really through mutual consent by both parties that has that are participating in the system. So I tell you one use case in Hong Kong. Now we process the medical claim with major group medical insurance company in Hong Kong without using any piece of paper. And that is what we think is a great improvement to legacy solution, which still requires signature from the customer, and also all kinds of manual inputting to the system, and a lot of reconciliation. So that is a very quick introduction of our solution. So I'm really excited to participate in this panel. And in case you have any question, feel free to raise anytime.
All right, no, thanks, William. For me, it's very heartening to see that two of our InsurTech startups are doing so great with Mark's Galileo platform expanding into Southeast Asia, the likes of the Philippines, William, yourself, also making forays in GBA and expanding, growing from strength to strength. So I think that's great to hear. I think we're moving now over to Toronto to David from ConsenSys, the leading blockchain development company. So over to you, David. Okay, great.
Hi everybody. Good morning. I guess good evening in Hong Kong. I'm representing ConsenSys here on the panel. We are the world's leading global blockchain company. We build the tools, infrastructure, and applications that power the Ethereum network. We deploy in almost every regulatory environment. We have regional representation all over the world in more than 30 countries. We have 1,000 clients globally, many developers using our infrastructure and some of our signature products such as Infura and MetaMask. And we operate the leading enterprise Ethereum platform, the private network platform Quorum, which we acquired from JP Morgan in 2020. JP Morgan is now in strategic partnership with ConsenSys. An additional investment was just announced yesterday or the day before. Here are some of the companies globally using Quorum. We also have our own private network, Hyperledger Besu, which will be incorporated into the Quorum brand. The difference here is just that they use different code. Here are some of our signature platforms, Congo, Covantis, and LiquidShare. With regard to the insurance industry, here is a prototype that is being developed using ConsenSys software or some of our products, the Institute's Mortality Monitor in the United States, which is a death registry on blockchain, and the subrogation platform of State Farm and USAA, which is using Quorum. I'm happy to just go into more detail about those use cases and those prototypes. We're also taking a lead in central bank digital currencies. And we have a suite of products that reside on top of Quorum that are modular and that can be combined to meet the needs of any client in any business sector quickly and efficiently, whether it's assets, payments, markets, workflows, issues around compliance and regulation, or data analysis. Thank you.
Thank you, David. So following this nice introduction from our two startups and ConsenSys, we will jump on the panel. So I will start by saying, a bit of ground rules. So basically, for the question, we will hold them until the end, and at the end, since you will be able to unmute and ask your own question. If you don't want to unmute because there is a lot of background noise, you can still use the chat, of course. But yeah, it's to make it more, human and personalized. Always better to unmute, I would say. So to start the panel, we will basically ask the first question on what are the key insurance industry problems that the blockchain help to address? And maybe, we can hear from, Mark, William, and basically David on, highlighting the key problem that blockchain address in the industry, in the insurance industry. Thank you.
Thanks, Emma. So the problem which we're largely engaged on is the hundreds of millions of people in the emerging markets in Asia who are entering the addressable space for insurance products. Insurers typically across Asia have been doing distribution through feet on the street, through agents, relationship managers, and do not really have a digital ready platform. This new emerging market is at a lot lower premium point, is going to be high volume, lower value premium transactions, etc. And the systems, the tech, and the operating models that the insurers have just aren't designed to actually support that sort of model. What we bring to the party is a lower cost platform that is completely straight through processed, enables agile product development, and enables them to work with digital platforms 24/7, right around the clock, with the knowledge that the distributors are looking at the same version of the policy that they are. They can share that information with the customer through their channels. And it's often our most common platform is through wallets, but also we're working with one telco, as I mentioned before, through their technology, so that they've got available to them the same information that the insurer has, and that enables them to run their own analytics on the purchases and the customers, etc., and not be dependent on the insurer. The other thing it enables is that the insurer, therefore, through their node, can have one set of APIs that they're using to drive the transactions, and each distributor can actually be using a separate set of APIs that are operating on their nodes and driving those particular transactions. No one's having to talk the other person's language, yet they're able to transact and operate in real time, giving the client a far better experience and enabling us to sell the volumes of policies which we are. And that also that's not just for new business, it's right through the life cycle. Claims processing, all of that is being done across the platform with the customer self-servicing, taking photographs of evidence and documents, etc., and uploading it. And that creates a whole different model for insurers to distribute product and support their customers.
Actually, I think for insurance industry, I can't say blockchain is currently a mainstream technology for them yet. But the way I see it is actually when we deal with insurance, actually there are multiple parties are involved. You probably need to work with the medical providers. You need to work with the banks. You work with the brokers, the agents, all kinds of parties. Actually, there is no a common platform that basically everyone can trust currently. Typically, the current system is largely built on a single insurance company. I'd say I am a large insurer, I will build a system, so everyone use my system. But then that is not the most convenient way to really work with those partnerships, because it's really saying that because I'm big, you need to trust my system. But then you always come into a dilemma. So if I am a provider, I am a broker, I work with several insurance companies, but then I need to use different system in that case. And it's really difficult for me to 100% trust the other party system, because at the end of the day, I surely would trust the insurance company that I'm working with, but they can still make careless mistake. And if that matters to me, I would still need to have my own system to check it. And that is really the exact problem. The business world is actually operating on a semi-trust basis. We won't work with people who we didn't trust, but we cannot trust the person in full. And my regulator doesn't allow me to trust them in full. So the blockchain is actually one of the solutions to really tackle this trust issue among different parties. You will have, if everyone are on the blockchain platform, then you have the capability to ensure that everything just work as you would expect, is per the contract that you have signed it with them. And that is very important. Although the concept is so easy to understand, but it's actually very, very difficult to tackle, because if we have that system, technically we can automate anything. That means I don't need to have staff to do finance. I don't need to have staff to do the audit. I don't have any. I can skip a lot of reconciliation, a lot of manual process, a lot of work will be saved, and that will bring the efficiency back to the benefit of the policyholder at the end of the day. So I think that is the tools to enhance the efficiency of operation of all insurance company. It's not. I don't say there is no tools. That's not true, but the most efficient tools is not yet implemented in the insurance industry. So you can see in Hong Kong case, all the insurance company, they are only selling the inpatient product that typically have very low frequency of claim, because in order to process a high frequency claim, I'm very with Mark. The current infrastructure of the insurance company cannot cope with it, because you have so many manual process. For each claim, you need to basically involve a huge cost in administrating it. You need to have someone to check the bill. You need to have someone to do the payment, all the thing. So you cannot run an insurance effectively and efficiently if the ticket size is small and the claim frequency is high. And that is not good as an industry. And I think the blockchain technology is the next generation of database, I would say, that basically are resolving this critical issue to allow high frequency and trust the system among all parties. And it could well be the SQL in nowadays. Before SQL, you find, oh, okay, SQL is so great, but then now you just take it for granted. Everyone uses SQL and no SQL, that kind of thing. But blockchain is not yet up to that stage, but one day it will become that. Thank you.
David, do you want to add your perspective?
Absolutely. I'll just share my screen again to illustrate my point more effectively. Typically, I like to say there are three categories of use cases when it comes to blockchain and insurance. The first is insurance with blockchain. And these are use cases that complement existing business practices. And they're basically revolving around the trust anchor that blockchain provides to networks or to a group of stakeholders, because blockchains allow stakeholders who may not trust each other to share data and to coordinate activity in a manner that is trustworthy. In so doing, blockchains allow users to break down silos and eliminate the reconciliation of data and all the manual intervention that goes into those processes. In so doing, the quality of data is improved, which can have an effect on pricing, underwriting, fraud mitigation, know your customer practices, and ultimately less legal disputes. Some of the areas in which this particular category can be applied would be a registry of high value items, proof of insurance, first notice of loss, claims repositories, subrogation and intercompany accounting, which I mentioned with regard to State Farm and USAA, supply chains and warranties, which have an insurance angle. You can think of groups coming together to have a blockchain-based reinsurance treaty or tower of risk, and then also something like a registry of death certificates, which I also mentioned as a prototype. Another category of use cases would be insurance on blockchain. And this is a little bit more radical than the previous category because it's about actually conducting insurance on blockchains themselves. So using the features of smart contracts to come up with new and exciting products in insurance that are creating a new demand and new customer experiences. And smart contracts allow us to replace legal language with code, to replace lawyers in courts with automatic implementation and distributed confirmation. They guarantee execution because you code the business logic into the smart contract, something William just mentioned. You can collateralize funds on a smart contract. Everyone can see that they're there. And you can clear and settle accounts rapidly and at low cost. So some of the areas in which this kind of more radical experimentation is taking place include parametric insurance or insurance-linked securities, derivatives for cryptocurrency volatility, marketplaces and distribution of insurance, which I think speaks a little bit to Mark's platform, peer-to-peer insurance, and mutuals and reciprocals, who are looking at ways in which to have mutualization on blockchain. And all the policyholders are incentivized to perform the functions of the company through what we call token economics. So the tokens that you hold as part of the platform, you can stake them and you can earn rewards for engaging in claims assessment, for instance, or even aspects of underwriting or other functions. So this is very interesting, a little bit more radical than the previous example. And the final example is or category of use cases that I speak to would be insurance for blockchain. And this is not so much blockchain innovation by insurers. This is about meeting the surging demand for insurance of blockchains themselves and the new risks that come along with blockchain. So this is a market opportunity for insurers. And some of the risks would include custodians and exchanges or oracles, which are data feeds that feed the business log or feed data into the smart contracts that control the business logic. All of these entities can be hacked or they can malfunction, which can occasion financial loss. And so there are now policies that have been developed and schemes of insurance whereby we're going to protect financial loss in the event of a breach or some other peril occurring. And so this is a burgeoning market, huge demand, and very exciting in its own right. So those are the three categories to which I often speak.
Thanks, David, for that. Maybe moving on to how the insurers, what they are doing. I mean, Bob, being the head of the Center of Competence, you've probably seen many use cases. And you were at AI. What are really the use cases that you see that are getting traction with insurers like yourself globally that the audience would love to hear? And of course, others from your perspective as InsurTech blockchain company, what's your perception of what the traditional companies are using in terms of the key use cases for blockchain?
Yeah, thanks, William. Yeah, so the use cases that we're really looking at are spread across 3 areas, and we learned from those areas We learned those areas from the large number of POCs that have been going on in multiple operating entities around the globe. And from that, we determined there's three really main use cases or problem patterns that we identified that blockchain is likely to be or is the best possible solution for blockchain deployment. So that's, and the other speakers, Mark and David and William have mentioned already, like reconciliation. Obviously, number one in insurance companies, we do a lot of reconciliation. I need to see and know what you have, what data you have is the same as the data that I have, and we can then take actions based on that knowledge. Of course, in a large multinational company like Allianz, we've got a lot of mirrored processes across multiple different entities in their own jurisdictions and so on. But those mirrored processes lend themselves to blockchain solutions where we can eradicate, let's say, duplicate effort in multiple lines of business. And then, of course, audit trail problems. So we really focus our attention on those three main problem patterns. We sort of, to the exclusion of all else, and we take into account really then let's say the value, the business value, the size of the business value that attacking that problem would give back to the business. So we're really at the point in our evolution and our understanding is that we know the technology works. I think we're all pretty much agreed on that. It's really about deploying it at scale and operationalization. So that's where we're focusing right now. One of the main use cases, of course, and Allianz is more focused on P&C insurance, maybe less so on the life and health, which will come later, but primarily in Europe, certainly on P&C insurance, is around the claims settlement. And one of the big areas that we identified is that even within the Allianz world, cross-border claims settlement is a large problem that we need to solve, and that's where our really first major product will be launched. We launched a public problem statement to the Technological University of Munich and Fortis here in Germany, and from that we evolved a POC on open source products, and we took that in house then to build that on enterprise grade blockchain platform. So we build our platforms on both Hyperledger Fabric and Corda. So we're splitting our bets, if you like. And we keep an eye on all of the rest, of course, but that's going to then solve international claims settlement. So the idea being that a car driver insured by Allianz in Germany crashes into a car insurance driver insured by Allianz France, and they happen to both be in Italy. That presents quite some significant challenges in terms of the contract, and really from there then we can solve that problem using our product, which will go live very soon into our internal market, which will cover quite some transaction load and volume of business. So really focusing on the big impactful stuff. Other areas, of course, I think, and here maybe Germany a little bit in the lead. The local regulator obviously is in the process of setting new regulations for digital securities, fixed income securities, which of course impacts on Allianz, as we have global investors and PIMCO, for example, in that space. But certainly in Germany, then obviously eagerly looking at how we might take advantage of the change in the regulations to allow digital only securities, which presents an enormous. But again, if you look at the problem space, it's a big problem. It's reconciliation, it's duplicate processes, and there's volume there, and there's big business value there to be attacked. And of course, where Allianz is a shareholder in B3I, which is the global blockchain insurance consortium, which is made up of over 20 stakeholders and investors globally from the insurance world. So the likes of Allianz, Munich Re, we've got CPIC in China as a shareholder there, SBI in Tokyo, and so on. And that, of course, is the reinsurance risk transfer use case, which is huge. I think one of the quotes from my operational guys was that this is the first time they've had complete contract certainty in their contracts using the platform there. And of course, then within that there are other opportunities for collaboration. Other use cases in the insurance world, maybe at a national level, then is there are problems in onboarding in terms of data sharing and data validation between insurance companies, on customers who wish to transfer between companies. So that at an industry level, we take this this blockchain as a team sport idea into national industries, for example, to ease the onboarding of customers into and verification of their data that gets transferred between insurance companies. And that's not just specific to P&C, of course. That would lend itself to life and health. And indeed, I think if I recall, one of the use cases that we deployed when I was based in Hong Kong was an onboarding blockchain platform between insurer and bank assurance partner in Hong Kong. So that really goes to show that, as Mark said, that we solve these problems to make lives better for customers. And I think that's at the heart of it. I think if the business value driver is there first, then the technology can be swept along with it. And as I say, it's maybe not the only solution, but certainly for some use cases and for some problem patterns, it's probably the best solution. And I think if we convince our business owners of that, then that's when the technology will take off. So yeah, that's where we're focused on. And I think, and in terms of big value adding stuff, I think the time for POCs is really gone, and then we should focus on adoption and implementation.
No, thanks. I mean, I rarely get excited about insurance, frankly. Really, the part around the cross-border claim setup, I think that's also very relevant for here, with everyone talking about the Greater Bay Area, the 11 cities. How does it work? So I would actually love to see how that use case once there's more clarity around it.
Yeah, when we go live, you'll certainly hear about it.
Perfect, perfect. All right. No, that's perfect. Maybe anything else from Mark, David, and William? Maybe we'll start with Mark, then we go to, okay, I see David already unmuted. Maybe David, yourself first, and William, then Mark.
Sure, I don't mean to jump ahead.
No worries.
So harking back to when I mentioned the three broad categories of use cases: insurance with, on, and for blockchain, in my role at ConsenSys, what I tend to see is from the legacy insurance industry, the greatest interest is in insurance with blockchain, which, as I mentioned, is focused on complementing existing business practices. There is some interest from the legacy insurance world in insurance on blockchain, but given that that is somewhat more radical in conception and in implementation, that's a bigger leap, as it were. So the interest that I've seen is mostly with regard to insurance with blockchain, and of course insurance for blockchain. But as I mentioned, that's less about the implementing the technology by insurers, and it's more about meeting market demand and providing capacity to blockchain risks. So some of the examples with regard to insurance with blockchain, as Bob just mentioned, involving reconciliation. So there's the Mortality Monitor, as I mentioned, which is a prototype that is being developed in the United States to establish essentially a death registry that can be used by insurers in the life and annuity space. And the idea here is that you're going to have a single source of truth around death. Insurers can share information around validation and verification of death for the purpose of paying out life claims, and they can actually sell that information to each other by using tokens to track who is contributing to the database. And then eventually you can bring in other stakeholders, such as coroners and physicians and frontline staff, who can upload the information directly from the ground, as it were, for the use by the industry. And those participants can also be rewarded by the token economic scheme. The other use case I mentioned had to do with subrogation. And the idea here is that you avoid interacting too much with your accounting systems or the banking world and all the problems around dollar transacting, and you keep track of intercompany IOUs through tokens, which are, if on a private network, very cheap and fast to exchange between counterparties. They're immutable, they're tamper-proof, no one can cheat the system, but then you can settle and clear your obligations at an agreed upon interval. And in this way, you massively reduce your dollar burden, and you avoid a lot of problems around manual reconciliation and the kind of errors that typically exist now. So those are the use cases that we tend to see at ConsenSys with our codified product suite. There's an interest by the insurance industry to look at these implementations that will allow them to coordinate more effectively as an industry, and claims is another area as well, as Bob mentioned.
Thanks for the very elaborate response. And I think, Mark, you probably have many coffees with traditional insurers, probably also a lot of drinks to toast to success. What have you seen in this space that they really, what resonates well with traditional, so to say, insurers?
Well, I support, there's a couple of areas here. Firstly, I support with what Bob was saying earlier, where we eliminate reconciliations and the issues of duplication in the industry. That's always a winning use case. But there's also some other interesting ones which we've been working on. David raised the whole issue of being able to run the whole claim process on the blockchain and being able to settle instantly, etc. We've done a bit of work in that space. We did some very interesting work it was actually in Myanmar. This work's not going forward, as you can imagine. But it was actually with an insurer and a farm supply company, which wanted to give crop-based insurance to the farmers in Myanmar for climatic events. The idea being that should a climatic event occur, a flood or something similar which wiped out the crop, that rather than the farmer being paid money, he'd be given a voucher to actually go back to the crop supply organization and repurchase seeds to replant the crop. And that became a very automated process for actually supplying all of that and tracking and tracing it on the train. That's one of the more interesting ones. We're working on one at the moment, which I really like. It's quite specific to a few Asian markets, certainly Thailand, which is where we're working on it, but also in Indonesia. And that's the issue of customers of motorbike taxi providers. Very common in Thailand that, you know, your last mile or so of a journey is done in Bangkok, of jumping on the back of a motorbike and paying a small amount of baht to the driver, but also a high-risk venture on behalf of the pillion passenger. We're working with an insurer there where the customer can actually get personal accident insurance for that particular journey. It's a small, very incidental journey of often just minutes, or at most 30 or so minutes for the passenger. We're looking at it in two ways. One is to be triggered by the passenger. I'm now on the bike, I'm now off the bike. The second one is actually using telematics as part of the solution as well, running within the insurer's app, and then charging it either instantly through a wallet-based solution, or alternatively accruing it and charging it periodically on a monthly basis through a credit card. The amounts being far too small to charge every single time that the customer hits that, although we could. A final one is just in the whole micro-insurance space. Micro-insurance has struggled right across Asia from what we've looked at, largely because of the economics of getting the premium down to that point. Straight-through processing on the premium works, the operating model on the new business side works, and it comes back to what I said earlier. The use case here that makes it successful is the claim. Being able to dissect that claim to the point of which you can either pay it instantly if you want to, or alternatively you pass an information-rich triage of the claim to the assessor so that the assessor's role drops down to really just validating the documentation, making it fit, it aligns with what the customer has entered through their phone, and then checking any flags that are highlighted in the claims triage processing. For automated payments of claims, we're doing something really interesting in the Philippines. We do have an ability to pay claims automatically for the simple claims and low value claims. but rather than paying them instantly, we actually hold them for four business hours. During that time, if a claims assessor does come free, they can actually come into the process, manually assess the claim using the triage and everything, and kick it through to final payment. If they don't come free, we just pay it after the 4 business hours have passed. That achieves 2 things. One, there is therefore the occasional checking of these automated claims to make sure that there's nothing run amok that our algorithms aren't picking up. The second thing it does is it does stop the instantaneous payment of a claim. If that starts to occur, word will start to spread that claims of a particular type get paid automatically, which is likely to trigger an increased occurrence of fraud. So there's a few interesting use cases. The other one, which is kind of interesting, we sort of have been working in the wallet space. We now find ourselves talking in the bank assurance area a lot more frequently, where the bank is often frustrated about the lack of information which they're getting from the insurer, be it, you know, batch updates or whatever. What they worry about is the lack of an omni-channel experience in the hands of the customer, where if they contact the bank's call center, they're going to get a different answer if they contact the insurer. And we now find ourselves increasingly moving out of the wallet space and into the full-on bank assurance space.
Thanks for sharing all those real-life examples here in Asia that really speak to the imagination. William, maybe yourself, and then we move on to the next set of questions.
Okay. Actually, I think the major area of applying blockchain is still the claim side, because that is the part that that has the highest impact to the customer, as Bob has mentioned, and also they involve the most number of parties and a lot of paper process in that field. I would say the way I see it, the next use case would really a large scale adoption of blockchain on the claim processing. I see one problem is really major, especially in that area, is talking about the inpatient claim. Actually, there is no system nowadays that allow you to verify whether there is any duplicated claim. This problem statement exists for years. And the way that we tackle it is really try to rely on a paper bill and then requiring an original copy of the paper. And if someone claim that you need to wait for one insurer to pay your claim first before you can process the other insurance claim. And you need to rely on that piece of paper to ensure that there is no duplicated claim. And that is a very legacy, I would say. And with a consortium like B3I or all kinds of insurer consortium, it would only be a matter of time before they come up with a solution that basically allow all insurer to share non-private information about the claim, whether this person is claiming on the same incident, on the same amount that some insurance company has already paid for. And that's, I think, is a major collaboration between all insurers to make that happen. And that's the promise that the blockchain can bring along. And that is the one part. And I think the other very important development is happening in China. It's about the digital currency. Once the digital currency is there, and also the regulation advance to a certain point in time, actually it's may not be to the advantage of the traditional insurer, but it is only a matter of time someone will create an insurance company purely on blockchain. You just code every logic. You can do the KYC, you can do the actuarial part, you can ask people to chip in money to invest, and the regulator can see through all the process. Okay, you definitely meet my KYC requirement because I know the money is coming from the key source, and I definitely know you have met all the reserving requirement because I can see exactly how much money digital currency that you have in your bank. And that is beyond doubt. One day, someone will be able to create an insurance company purely on blockchain without any people involvement, by leveraging to different parties, connecting to different systems, insurance company, all the medical provider, all kinds of things. Then that would be a really disruptive move, and that insurance company could operate at a very high efficiency, and that can be a mutual company. So that's something I think is quite scary, but it's also have a chance to being a reality in the near future.
William, I'll just jump in on your comment about the fraud detection. Actually, whenever in a previous life, we looked at this exact problem, the claims duplication, and I think it's a well-known fact that it can be sometimes be a let's say just a competition how many insurance policies you can get. There is a way to do it, and of course, when you're dealing with personal information, it's very difficult to put, personally identifiable information on a blockchain. Of course, we need to recognize that difficulty. But I explored with my team how we would do this, and there is the possibility, so converging with other technologies, you could use blockchain or normal processes to determine, maybe in a multi-signature wallet kind of way, or however, the unique fingerprint of a health claim. And yes. And then you could put that, however you piece together that unique fingerprint into a blockchain network where multiple insurers could query the ledger for the same unique fingerprint. You would have to obviously combine it with sort of nearest neighbor type hashing functions and so on to make sure that you were eliminating false positives. But I think that exact case is very doable, and we explored it in quite some detail, and indeed to the POC level, and I think it really does work. It's about, again, it gets back to this point though, you need the minimum viable ecosystem to agree to play by the same rules. Yeah. And if you get multiple insurers dealing with using that, let's say that consensus algorithm and how you create that unique fingerprint, then you don't actually never need to put customer data onto the ledger to prove the duplication of claim. And the other side effect of that, which we discovered, was that there's an incentive mechanism at play as well, because as an insurer, you don't want to be the second insurer coming to the ledger with that claim. You want to pay yours first, so that you don't have to deal with the fallout of having to deal with the fraudulent duplicated claim. So it really helps to underpin customer experience that, to pay your claims quicker than anybody else, and then you don't have to deal with the duplicated claims in the aftermath. So again, coming back to the customer experience point. So I think it's definitely doable. I think again, it just comes down to getting a set of like-minded insurance companies to agree to work together to solve an industry problem that is not collusive in any way or breaks any anti-competition rules, and also doesn't compromise customer privacy of data. And I think there is a way to do that, especially in Asia, where I know health claim duplication is certainly of a large volume and enough to make it worthwhile for that to be tackled, particularly in countries like Taiwan, possibly to a lesser extent Hong Kong, but certainly it's a valuable use case, which is not that far away from being reality.
Yeah, I really look forward to more forward-looking insurer like yourself. That will definitely make this become a reality very soon.
Yeah, thank you. So it feels, from what I've been hearing, that, in terms of the hurdles, a bit like, I'm coming from the banking asset management industry, working on legacy system with manual processes to handle claims. Those are, I would say, the main hurdles. What would be the other hurdle? And maybe, by hearing what you are saying, I feel that it's not only blockchain that can solve those hurdles, but it's a combination of multiple technology, combined with, OCR, maybe optical character recognition to handle the claims, etc., etc. So, I would have, as well, a perspective from you on this. Is it only about blockchain or more than that? Who wants to start? Yeah, Bob.
Yeah, I think it's definitely, like, for me, and certainly the projects that we're doing and the products that we're building, like blockchain just forms a very not a very thin layer, but like, about 20% of the overall product, a very, doing what blockchain is good at, and leaving it there, and not sort of shoehorning the technology into areas where it has no right being. And a lot of the interaction is around the customer, is the front end experience, the user interface, the user experience, how we make it easy, and really to develop a strategy of where you're not just building products in isolation. You're not building products from, in pinpointing certain areas, but that you build an overall strategy where individual products are of value to the business right away, but thinking about how in the medium term, as the technology evolves and as it gains more acceptance, not building yourself down a dead end, but building in such a way that you can then link those networks of networks together, and really get to the sort of the big end goal, the big vision here, where we have using blockchain as an automation tool, if you like, and a trust tool to build end-to-end automation of the insurance value chain. So right from customer premium at the very beginning, all the way through to settling reinsurance treaties, and how our investing in asset classes, as tokenization and so on becomes more prevalent and more trusted way of doing things, like taking asset classes, either fractionalizing those asset classes and selling them in the retail market, individual pieces of customer risk, or in aggregating them and so on. So there's we have to think beyond the sort of the spot problem fixes, but make sure that we're building in this way that we can bring them all together. And so I have a vision in my head where you see the likes of B3I connecting to trade supply networks, providing trade credit insurance or trade finance. We see, those asset classes coming from global employee benefits programs, for example, creating clusters in the car insurance market. If we can bring the aggregated insurance risk together, then we can more easily wholesale sell bigger blocks of business to different traders. And really this end-to-end vision, I think, is what we want to get to. But we have to make sure that each bit of the puzzle that we piece together is in of itself valuable to the business and to customers. And then we can bring them all together. And I think that's where the real value will lie. And that ecosystem, that minimal viable ecosystem that I spoke about, gets larger and larger and starts to incorporate and extend into other areas, like in car insurance, into repair shops, into OEMs, from the car from the factory all the way to a customer's hand and beyond in its use and its life, around making sure that you're using programmable money, for example, CBDCs, where you can say, yep, we'll pay your claim in this programmable money, but you need to spend it in a recognized underpinned guaranteed repair shop, so we can trust that you have the right car under you for your safety in your vehicle and so on. So there's a really, we really need to think about how all of the different pieces and how they fit together, but make sure that we don't block off any of those avenues of attack or avenues of revenue or opportunity or customer safety and so on and so on.
Yeah, Emma, just to sort of follow on, I briefly put up a slide sort of showing, a broader architecture which we implement. And the fact is that any solution has to exist within the real world, and that real world includes legacy systems, GLs, backend systems, CRMs, data lakes, and goodness knows what else. And, so any solution that is going to be developed into the insurance industry, such as ours, has to deal with that real life ecosystem within either the distributed insurer or whichever counterparty you're working with. And that goes right down to integration to identity management systems. So we've got a big piece of work where we run a full role-based identity management environment on the blockchain. Each individual, whoever they are or endpoint, is their own blockchain address, but that at the node can be translated through the person's policy administration environment. Through the person's identity management environment, so that they know who that individual is. and it's a seamless interaction for that person. They don't have to log on separately and all that sort of very old school stuff. The same thing as to how, you know, we integrate through into the back-end systems that exist, open integration frameworks, lots of APIs, OAPIs, microservices, those sorts of layers are absolutely essential. And if you just walk in and say, we have a blockchain solution, it's just going to go nowhere with any particular insurer or anything else like that. You've got to make it as open, easy. And, you know, our focus is on actually hiding the blockchain technology. You know, as far as one of our users see it, it's just APIs, and they have, you know, they could actually be totally naive to the fact that it's the blockchain that's facilitating the transactions, guaranteeing the delivery, and ensuring everyone is able to interoperate the way they can. And so recognizing that you're within a real world that includes integrating to 1980s COBOL engines and everything else along the way is absolutely essential to being successful, to be quite honest.
Yeah, like I would agree, like our experience in deploying the product is just exactly that. You know, things like roles and responsibilities access does not go away just because it's a blockchain solution. And this is something that we've been very focused on as we've built our products, is that they fit within our global security framework, for example. So we very much take the view that when you are deploying and building products, that you have to adhere to your company's security policy, for example. I'm a big believer that there hasn't been there's not one regulation or one law in the world that will stop me from innovating. I just need to make sure that I innovate in the right way around and within those constraints. And it is possible. It is possible to do, but you need to, you know, we've connected to B3I, for example, adhering to our global security framework. It hasn't held us back in that regard. So it's very important that when InsurTechs and startups come to the corporate world, that they acknowledge that there is a world that they have to fit into. And we are not, as a large insurance company, we're not going to throw out our core insurance platform and replace it with overnight. That's just not going to happen, right? So we either build to the side, or you build the pieces where it most makes sense, and then ultimately those pieces will come together. But that will take time, and as you have customers' records and policies sitting on existing core insurance platforms that will have to close over time, and will have to pay out, and will have to be renewed, and so on. So we need to just, we need to accept that there's migration, there's decommissioning to happen, there's all the full product life cycle that has to occur in some cases. And where we're smart, and where the InsurTechs and startups can be smart, is just working with good corporate partners to figure out how they make those first steps, how they get onto the ladder and start to change the business, or completely start up a new business, and attack the market in that direction. But you need to get your insurance license, you need your banking part, all of the things that comes, like we heard about Sing Life earlier. Starting an insurance company from scratch is not easy, and it takes a tremendous amount of hard work and endeavor to do that. And Sing Life have shown that it is possible. Yeah? But if you're going to work with corporate, large existing insurers and so on, then there comes with that some history, and you need to don't come in and say, you're doing everything wrong, we're going to fix it for you. It's like, how can we work together? How can we work together to make it better and give your customers a better service?
I think in utilizing blockchain, actually, one major issue that we see in that kind of journey is actually, I can say that actually the number of programmers who are very familiar with blockchain, or the management who are very familiar with blockchain, is not that many at this moment. So the merit of blockchain is really to create a trust, but that trust can only be created if all the parties are sophisticated and they can verify actually the logic and also the coding according to what the business process or the business contract. But currently, we can't say a lot of people are able to do that. And I would say maybe gradually there will be more parties who come forward to actually help the organization to verify whether the blockchain really are cooked according to the contracts. Maybe those Big Four will come out and then do audit on behalf of the clients to make sure that even though you are not blockchain expert, you can basically enjoy the benefit coming from the blockchain through the guarantee, through the assurance of low tampering of the record. And that is very important in order to have a widespread adoption of blockchain. So I think we are not yet there, but then the journey is gradually moving forward. Just like other technology, it takes time to mature, and for every student to understand that, and everyone can talk about blockchain, and then it can become a widespread adoption. So I really appreciate a lot of insurance company. They are very forward looking, and they are having POC done already, and also different level of implementation. And I think the day where it become a mainstream adoption would be very, very near.
Right.
And one final point I want to make is actually still a lot of people have a lot of fancy about blockchain. I would say a hype. Actually, blockchain doesn't do any feature new. That's honest. You can do OCR, you can do encryption, you can do data sharing, everything with the blockchain. It's actually true. No feature cannot be done with the blockchain. But the only merit of blockchain is that after you have done something, that something can be trusted by everyone. And that is a very different, a fundamental way to change how system operates. And I think the more people are familiar with blockchain, the more use case can be created, and ultimately everyone can enjoy the benefit that bring along by the technology.
Right. No, love your enthusiasm. And before we open the floor to questions, any remarks from yourself, David?
With regard to the other technologies that go along with blockchain, oracles should probably be mentioned. Blockchains need to be fed data to execute their business logic in the smart contracts. So yes, artificial intelligence goes along with blockchain. Oracles can be, anything from drones to, data indices maintained by third parties, artificial intelligence, anything of that nature that can feed information into the blockchain. So that's a very important part of insurance and blockchain. If we're going to develop automated insurance products, for instance, we're going to be quite reliant on data providers, for instance, however they provide that data to initiate smart contract transactions according to smart contract business logic.
And David, there is, of course, the reciprocal of that is that we have at our fingertips with blockchain a large, high quality longitudinal data set, which was very, very desirable for our friends in the machine learning and AI spaces, because clean data is like gold dust. So there's a real symbiosis between a lot of the emerging technologies that can build upon each other. And I think that, protecting IoT devices, ensuring their software is unchanged from manufacturer to provision of data streams and so on. So there's a lot, there's a real opportunity there for bi-directional uses and overlapping and convergence use cases, actually.
I agree. As the amount of data on blockchains grows, blockchains can rely on that internal data more and more as well.
Yeah.
Opening up to the floor. Anyone has any question, please unmute. Noelle, okay, Noelle, or please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
yeah,
loud
okay.
and clear.
So I actually have a couple of questions. Thank you very much, all. I think that was really informative, but I do have a couple of questions, and both of them are related to privacy. So the first one is that originally, a year back, 18 months back, when the idea of blockchain as a platform supporting the insurance industry, one of the big benefits that was touted was the ability of blockchain to put back control of people's health data back into their own hands, so they would be able to control and share what they want. Now, I didn't hear any of you, none of you actually spoke anything about in that direction. On the opposite, you actually said, in order for us to avoid duplicate claims, the insurers can actually share the data on blockchain between the different insurance companies. And I guess that would be done without the consent of the owner of the data. So I was a little bit surprised to hear such a like a separation between the benefits that was touted about blockchain in the insurance space just a year ago compared to what I'm hearing here. And my other question, which also has to do with privacy, is about the right to be forgotten. So, obviously that's a conflict with blockchain. So I'm really curious about how you handle that, especially that this is health data, which is probably one of the most private data that people want to be able to control and to manage.
I'll tackle that first. So one of the things I did point out was that we don't put any personal information on the blockchain. The personal information, be it names, addresses, medical records, identity documents, whatever, goes into an off-chain storage, and all we put onto the blockchain is the location of where that is and a mathematical hash, so we know it hasn't been tampered with. That can then be shared with the counterparties to a transaction. So that may be a distributor sharing it with a insurer. That node then reaches out across a subnetwork, retrieves the personal information, and stores it locally on their network to make it even more secure. Everything's encrypted, by the way, both at rest and in motion. To make it even more secure, there's a SAS token, which means that window is only open for 5 minutes. By keeping it separate in that manner, at any point in the future, the operator, the person can go through and delete the information out of off-chain storage. The notification that it's been deleted can be shared with the counterparties and will be correspondingly deleted out of their off-chain storage locations. So what we're left with is transactional information on the blockchain, but it's fully redacted of personal information. For the sharings of consent, we've actually did work with one of the regulators in Asia on the ability to share medical consents. So firstly, our solutions, by that mechanism, our solutions fully GDPR compliant and complies with any privacy legislation. We did work with one of the regulators here in Asia on the sharing of consent in line with their privacy legislation as they were implementing it. This was the ability for a person to, if a party shares information with another party, it is recorded, it is always visible to the person who owns it, and they have a right at any time to ask for that consent to be revoked. That was to apply to personal information and also to medical records. COVID-19 then struck, and the work we were doing with that regulator has been put on hold, and we spoke to them just recently to see if they wanted to come back and revisit it, and not at the moment. They've got many other issues that they're dealing with in this particular environment. So the consent issue, has certainly been looked at. We have a working model for dealing with that to make sure the person's got the rights to control their information.
Yeah, I would just echo that. When we talk about sharing, let's say preventing duplicate health claims, for example, and maybe I didn't detail it enough, but that's specifically designed not to share any personally identifiable information across the network. And we decouple, as Mark says, the transactional data that shows everyone that a transaction has been processed in accordance with the consensus algorithm, but that is decoupled from the underlying data that's fed into that transaction. And that's something that, and especially here in Germany, very focused on personal data privacy and so on, that using blockchain technology to share that something is true, so like that I can prove to a beer house that I'm eligible to drink beer without ever showing them my date of birth, by the virtue of the fact that the consensus algorithm says that I'm allowed to drink very tasty Munich-based beverages. So that's something that we very, very heavily focus on, as I alluded to maybe a bit at the start, that we don't seek to work outside the legal frameworks of the countries in which we operate, and we very much design our products with those constraints in mind, and figure out ways in which we can do that, and always with full customer consent to GDPR legislation requirements about what we're going to do with that data, who's going to process it, which third parties are going to process that data, and within Allianz, of course, we adhere to corporate binding rules, which allow us to use data across our global footprint as well. So nothing ever untoward with customer data, certainly not.
I just have a very quick remark. Actually, about the consents, it's good to remember blockchain is only a technology. Whether the consent is obtained from the customer is actually depending on how you implement that solution. And blockchain is actually a good tool that basically make more things possible to, for example, we want to protect the privacy, but also need to load the existence of certain claim, that is the digital digital signature of a claim, but without knowing any details about the claim. That kind of thing is actually made possible with this technology. But how you use it is actually the key, whether you obtain the right consent at the right moment from the customer, and that is exactly depend on the implementation. And the right of to be forgotten is actually, of course, it's also very important. And that is, I would say, the blockchain make possible more option to the table, so that it can be the insurance company got more tools to make a process that fit all the privacy requirement, and also improve the customer experience, and also manage the claim. Yeah.
There's maybe room for one more question and one or two very quick responses. Anyone else has any questions? If not, then David, you had a comment.
Yeah. Sure. Sorry, I had one for David, since he's based in Toronto, near the US, where there are large insurers. How do we feel this blockchain InsurTech scene evolving in the US compared to Europe, compared to Asia? Just to give a sense, to the audience.
From my experience, it's different regions are evolving at a similar pace. To be honest, I think I've noticed in the last year a lot of interest, especially picking up more education. Having succeeded in encouraging insurers to think very carefully about what they want to do with blockchain. If you go further back in time, a few years ago, there was very limited understanding about blockchain and what it could do in the space. So that was a hurdle. It remains a challenge, but it is disseminating. The understanding and the knowledge is disseminating, and there, which is engendering more interest globally.
Okay. Any comments, Bob? Would you agree with that, or? Since you're based in Europe, you've been in Asia, so
yeah, absolutely. Like we've got, the sort of the hubs around Zurich in Switzerland and Zug, of course. There's a lot of activity in various parts, and increasingly amount in Munich as well, of course, and Berlin is coming. But I think the CBDC question is coming quite strongly in Europe with Christine Lagarde and the ECB, as well as the sort of the initial steps from the Bank of England as well, and of course Germany here with actually changing the law to allow digital only security, so no need for a physical custodian anymore of paper documents. So I think I agree with David. I think each region of the world is moving ahead, and increasingly the legislators and the regulators are taking note and really now fundamentally addressing. I read yesterday the draft paper that's going to the US Congress on CBDCs and what should be done there to ensure the US's place in the world, as we see obviously the blockchain services network and the DCEP in China increasingly engaged in larger and larger trials. Of course, that has implications for global trade and so on. So definitely, they're all evolving at a similar pace, I would say.
Cool, thank you very much. So before I close the event, I just want to do a bit of promotion for our next blockchain, event on non-fungible tokens, NFT, on the 28th of April. So we will have, the Sandbox, Dapper Lab, who has been, issuing the NBA Top Shot token, True Global Venture, and Sabotage, who is one of the first Hong Kong street art artists to have issued his own NFT in Hong Kong on OpenSea. So on the 28th, don't forget, you are all invited. And yet I'm gonna thank you very much. So William, Mark, Bob for dialing from Edinburgh, and David, thank you so much for waking up so early to be with us. And of course, my super co-moderator, Lapman. Thank you very much.